presidential election year, it's easy to overlook the down-ballot races, even as they move into their final stages. But these races matter more and more as control of Congress becomes more fluid and contested. Especially on domestic issues, the future of this country may be shaped more by who wins Congress this November than by who wins the White House. With the exception of a few brief interregnums, the Democrats controlled both houses of Congress for nearly the entire latter half of the 20th century. Then came the so-called Republican Revolution in 1994 that turned Capitol Hill upside down, the Democratic sweep in 2006 that seized control of the House back, and the Tea Party backlash of 2010 that gave President Obama the most obstructive and implacable congressional opposition in generations, the nature of which took a while to sink in the Oval Office. President Obama said, "I think there are many times in my first couple of years when I kept on sitting there trying to see if we can negotiate some sort of compromise, and there was just a lot of refusal on the other side's part to compromise." As the last 2 years have illustrated, the parliamentary discipline and maximalism of the modern Republican Party makes congressional control arguably more important than ever. So with the Democratic Party convening this week, we wanted to hear directly from some of the Democratic candidates in House and Senate races, because these are the people who hear directly from the voters, which is the reason why we've invited 5 down-ballot candidates to join us this morning. Here with me at the table is Rob Zerban, Paul Ryan's Democratic challenger for the 1st Congressional District in Wisconsin, Hakeem Jeffries, Democratic candidate for New York's 8th Congressional District, Cynthia Dill, Democratic candidate for U.S. Senator from Maine, Nate Shinagawa, Democratic candidate from New York's 23rd Congressional District, and joining us from Phoenix is Krysten Sinema, a Democratic candidate for Arizona's new 9th Congressional District. It is great to have you all here.
Thank you.
Nice to be here.
I want to start out talking about the role that incumbency plays, and this is especially true for 2 of you. Rob, you're running against an incumbent whose name is now familiar to America, Paul Ryan. Nate, you're also running against an incumbent, one-term incumbent, Tom Reed, sorry. Former mayor of Corning, right? A
That's
Republican.
Right. Yeah.
And the district has been redrawn. He's not in exactly the same district as
That's
before.
Right.
For both of you running against incumbents, the dynamic of this election so far has been about the economy, the Republicans making the case the economy is bad, it's Barack Obama's fault, vote Barack Obama out. But of course, we have divided government, and Congress has been, playing quite a role in the economy. Look at the debt ceiling fracas a year ago. How does that play in your district? I mean, are you making a case about the economy and tying it to the incumbent? Is that part of what the conversation is?
Absolutely. In the 1st Congressional District, since Paul Ryan's been our congressman, we've had a mass exodus of jobs. We had a GM plant close in Janesville, which we heard about. And his misrepresentation of the facts. And then we also had a Chrysler plant close in Kenosha, where I'm from. And so that right there combined is over 12,000 jobs that we've lost since he's been our congressman. So yes, I'm pointing this out to people, and I think that due to his speech and the outrage that was generated among the people and former UAW members in Janesville, it is front and center.
That's interesting. Has there been a lot of local backlash to that line in the speech?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, because people are looking, they look at this and say he either blatantly lied or he didn't know the facts, which, as your congressman, that is unacceptable.
We were looking at there's an amazing and sort of heartbreaking slideshow the last day of SUV production of that plant, December 23rd, I believe, 2008, and pictures and signed signatures. And Nate.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, I think that, this Congress has been totally obstructionist. And, you've had that jobs bill on the table that was just discussed, for a year and no action actually taking place. My district is very much like Rob's. We have a lot of manufacturing, a lot of agriculture, a lot of major decisions that need to be made this Congress that haven't been made. I'm running against an incumbent, Tom Reed, who was recently in the Sea of Galilee scandal as well. And it's an instance where
scandal is a little strong.
It's a scandal, yeah, true. All right. But he was part of it, and when he was part of it, it just showed that he was part of that culture in Washington. He went in there. This whole Tea Party movement went in there to change Washington, and they ended up becoming part of the problem, right? And he's still taking taxpayer-funded trips all the way overseas, right? And not just taxpayer-funded trips, but also trips paid for by lobbyists and special interests, right? And so he's become part of the problem. I think what voters are concerned about is that this status quo means that fairness doesn't pay off in this country. And there isn't fairness in this country. And so working and middle class people feel like they're being left behind. And that status quo that this Tea Party Congress is a part of, they're continuing that.
Okay, so we talked about the American Jobs Act and some of the job losses in the district. Cynthia, you're running in Maine. Hakeem, you're here in New York. And Krysten, you're in Arizona. And I was thinking about this conversation. I was remembering back in 2006, the Democrats very successfully nationalized that election. A lot of it was around the Iraq War and opposition to the Iraq War and a feeling of exhaustion. Let's say everyone at this table wins, and we have a Democratic majorities in both houses. What's the agenda, Krysten? What do you when you say to the folks in your district, I'm going to go to Congress, and if you put Democrats in charge, we will do what's the fill in the blank there?
Well, Chris, when we're walking and talking with voters in our district, what we say is the only way to change Washington is to change the people we send there. Because unfortunately, from Arizona, we've been sending a delegation that's more interested in partisan bickering than in actually solving problems. And I'll tell you, Chris, voters are concerned about one thing and one thing only in Arizona: jobs. 1/3 of Arizonans are worried that they could lose their jobs sometime this year. So they wake up in the morning and they don't really think about being a Democrat or being a Republican. They think about whether or not they're going to have their job, whether or not they can pay their mortgage, whether they can put their kids through school, and whether they'll have a safe and strong economic future. That's what they care about.
But when you're talking about that economic insecurity, right, the national election's happening at the same time. And when you're talking about economic insecurity, the argument that the opposition party is making is that it's the fault of the person at the top of the ticket, Barack Obama. I want to hear how you respond to that. I also want to hear what's surprising you that you're hearing from voters, because you guys are in touch with them, right after we take a quick break.